Tomorrow, President Trump heads to Japan to meet the new conservative prime minister. Then it's off to South Korea and that expected meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. For more on what to expect on the president's Asia trip, let's bring in the chair of the East Asia, Pacific, and International Cybersecurity Policy Subcommittee, Nebraska Republican Senator Pete Ricketts. Good morning, sir, and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So I want to get right to the president's meeting with Xi Jinping. This could have the biggest impact on the markets. The Treasury Secretary already indicating that the 100% tariffs that we've been threatening as a country to enact November 1st are effectively off the table with the announcement of this framework agreement on rare earth minerals. But of course, the devil's in the details here. China is basically saying they're going to pause the enactment of these export controls for about a year while they re-examine things. What does this episode tell you about the U.S. China relationship, and how should we as a country be using this period of time?
We are at the most dangerous time in our country's history since World War II because of the malign actions of Communist China. And the challenge here is that our economies are very intertwined. For example, the United States used to be the leader in processing rare earth elements and critical minerals. We gave that up, and now China's taken that over, and they've got a lot of leverage on us with this. Now, the flip side is we've got a lot of leverage with regard to chips. So these high-end chips are something China can't make. And so this is where this relationship is going to be one that we're going to continue to negotiate. As you mentioned, with China putting the export controls on hold for a year, what this gives us the opportunity to be able to do is to be able to develop those supply chains, like with Australia and what the president just did there, to be able to make the investments to get this critical minerals and rare earth elements up and running in other parts of the world with friendly countries so that we are not so beholden to Communist China. Their actions in the West Philippine Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the rest of the Indo-Pacific demonstrate that they are intent in kicking us out of there. So we need to make sure that we are not dependent or can be threatened or extorted by them withholding some of these things that we need to be able to build things, everything from cars to fighter jets. So I expect that the president's going to really portray with Xi Jinping strength, because that's the only thing dictators like Xi Jinping understand is strength. And we got the right guy in the job for it. The American people hired President Trump to protect us. And this is part of what he's going to be doing, is making sure that we're showing a strong hand to Communist China to be able to get this trade deal done, to continue to negotiate these different trade deals.
No doubt the president landing in Malaysia to a very good start with this announcement from the Treasury Secretary. Obviously good news there. The president also says, though, he would be open to meeting North Korea's Kim Jong-un while he's on this trip, but he has no plans to meet with Canada's prime minister, who is also in Malaysia. The U.S. just terminated trade talks with Canada. The president is very upset over Canada's airing of these ads, which President Trump says were selectively edited to misrepresent a Ronald Reagan quote. Listen to the president here.
Ronald Reagan loved tariffs. What they did is really dishonest. That's dirty playing. But I can play dirtier than they can, you know? Really very dishonest.
Canada is our second largest trading partner. Is this an overreaction at all?
Again, the president is a really good negotiator. He knows when to push people's buttons and when to back off. He's demonstrated that throughout the entire, part of his first term, and then, of course, the 9 months here so far that we're into his second term. And obviously, it's easier to get Canada from the United States than Asia. So focusing on our Asian allies right now really makes the most sense. And of course, the relationship with Canada is obviously very intricate as well between the United States and Canada. That's going to be an ongoing negotiation too. But what the president needs to do is focus on our Asian allies right now. We've got to make sure that we're getting these trade deals done with countries. It was great news about Malaysia, getting the ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand. Getting trade deals done with countries like Japan and South Korea are very important. We've got to make sure that we're really getting our allies squared away, and that we're presenting that strength to Xi Jinping when we're going to talk about how our relationship and our trade relationship going forward. I mean, just one thing. I mean, think about this, right? The China has said they're going to, cut off critical minerals. They've obviously backed off of that for a year, but somehow they can't stop fentanyl from coming to our country. It just doesn't make any sense. So they're a bad actor, and frankly, we got the best guy to be able to negotiate this in Donald Trump.
Okay, I want to ask you about some issues back home. The president's support for Argentina has affected ranchers and farmers in your state. The White House has defended this $20 billion currency swap with Argentina. Critics called it a bailout because Argentina was very quick to sell cheap soybeans to China when they stopped buying them from American farmers, with these trade negotiations stalled. Now cattle ranchers are very upset over the president's plans to quadruple imports of Argentinian beef to bring down prices. Listen to Caroline Levitt here.
The president loves our ranchers, and he also loves American consumers, and he wants to do right by both. So the immediate solution to the problem of the rising cost of beef, the president wants to bring that down, is we have to increase our supply.
Many of the president's supporters have said this flies in the face of his own arguments against cheap foreign imports and illegal labor in the name of protecting American jobs and manufacturing. And I know you raised this issue with the White House, but at the end of the day, is this plan even going to bring down prices? Because the ranchers are saying the big issue is the meat packers.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that, again, we're trying to keep Communist China out of our hemisphere. And that's why the president is trying to work with Argentina and be able to make sure they can resist what Communist China is doing. Certainly when it comes specifically to this beef trade, what I suggested to the White House was looking for more market-based solutions to how we can do this. For example, with the New World screwworm, we've had the Mexican border shut down to beef flowing back and forth to protect our beef herd here in the United States. If we invest more to be able to bring this fly under control, that will help open up that border, and that will help address beef prices sustainably in a market sort of way. I do think that if you're looking at some of these temporary solutions, bringing in Argentinian beef is really not something that I think is actually going to have the desired effect the president's looking for. Certainly appreciate he wants to bring grocery prices down, but we also got to remember that our ranchers have had a hard time of it, and they're actually making money for the first time in years. Let's, again, focus on things that are going to be more market-based solutions. And I think that is going to help not only our cattlemen, but also really get at what the president's trying to do.
Okay, finally, government shutdown is still ongoing, no end in sight. There's been more chatter about a carve-out to the filibuster. A lot of your colleagues are saying there's no support for that, or not enough support for that. But my last question to you is, there's some discussion that Democrats have certainly tried this before. They would have done it in 2022 for voting rights if it hadn't been for Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. What do you say to folks who are concerned that Republicans are the only party playing by the rules and they're going to get bitten by it this time?
Well, again, what we're looking at right now is the Democrats just being absolutely hypocritical with regard to the shutdown. They have voted for this exact same bill already 4 times over the last 18 months. This is the only bipartisan compromise that is out there. Again, it was a bipartisan bill that was, when it was passed the first time 18 months ago and each of the 4 times since. Republicans have now voted for it 12 times. Democrats have shot it down 12 times. At the end of the day, what the Democrats have to realize is that they need to just reopen government. They're hurting, the economy. That we're seeing that services are being delayed. People are working without their paychecks. Air traffic controllers, our law enforcement officers. In fact, we've offered a bill to be able to open or at least pay those people while they're working, for crying out loud. The Democrats blocked that too. So at the end of the day, the Democrats just have to come around and say, hey, you're going to have to vote for the bill that you've already voted for. And then we can start having conversations about what you want to do. But with our government shut down, the Democrats themselves have said that there's no discussion. They wouldn't discuss about other things like healthcare when the government was shut down before. That's what they said. So they're completely being hypocrites about this whole thing. With regard to the filibuster specifically, that's part of what makes the Senate the Senate. It's part of what protects the minority. We're in the majority right now, but we've been in the minority in the past, and that's really part of protecting the institution of the Senate.
I hear you. I just wondered, the longer this goes on, there's going to be more discussion about a carve-out or blowing up the filibuster if the stalemate continues. I think we're getting closer to that time, so we'll continue to follow it. Senator Pete Ricketts, thank you very much for joining the Sunday briefing, sir.
Great. Thanks very much for having me on.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.